Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer, and today we're here for yet another Civilization 6 Wonder Spotlight, where today we'll be taking a look at the Great Lighthouse. So the Great Lighthouse is a wonder that is unlocked with the celestial navigation technology. This does make it a classical era wonder. It is fairly easy to get to celestial navigation, so this wonder is earned pretty early on in the tech tree. All you have to do to gain the Eureka for celestial navigation is improve 2 sea resources. I don't find that I get this very early on in a lot of games because a lot of the times I'm building mines or farms rather than improving sea resources. But if you are playing a naval civ that's probably going to spawn on the coast, it is very easy to boost celestial navigation, and thus it is pretty easy to rush for the Great Lighthouse. Once you research celestial navigation, the building requirements for the Great Lighthouse are as follows. You must place it on a coast tile, and you must place it adjacent to a harbor with a lighthouse built in the harbor. So this is very similar to the Colossus that we talked about in the last episode, except now you just have to have a lighthouse built in the harbor as well. This does make it take actually a decent amount longer. That's going to take at least, 5 to 10 turns to build a lighthouse in addition to building the harbor, which is going to take another maybe 10 or 15 turns depending on how much production you have in the city. So it is actually going to delay how much time or how long it will take until you're able to place the Great Lighthouse down, so you're definitely not going to be able to build this right whenever you research celestial navigation, but you can get to it decently quickly as long as you have a competent city that you are building it in. Also, the Great Lighthouse has a production cost of 400 production, which is the same as pretty much every other classical era wonder, so nothing really surprising there. Should take about, 20 turns or so to build. Once you construct the Great Lighthouse, it will provide plus 3 gold to the city it's built in. It will provide plus 1 movement for all of your naval units. This does include embarked units as well, so if you embark some land units or if you embark in a settler or a builder, they will gain that plus 1 movement as well, and it gives you 1 Great Admiral point per turn. So, since we just talked about the Colossus in the last episode, I'm going to be comparing the Great Lighthouse to the Colossus quite a bit, and I think that the Great Lighthouse is not quite as good as the Colossus in its bonuses, just because you still get the plus 3 gold, but you don't get that additional trade route, so the gold benefit from the Great Lighthouse is a lot less. You do get that plus 1 movement for all naval units, which is going to mean that for domination purposes, I think that the Great Lighthouse is pretty good. Especially if you're going for naval domination, obviously. Well, really, only if you're going for naval domination. But either way, you are going to be able to get that plus 1 movement, which is going to make it easier for you to move your ships around to go position for an attack. It's going to make it easier for you to take your land units across continents, if that's something that you need to do. Maybe you need to transfer them across the ocean to go to another continent. That'll speed that up a nice bit. So for domination purposes, I think that the Great Lighthouse is pretty strong. For other purposes, though, I don't think it's really all that impactful, and I would pretty much always build the Colossus instead. And now it is that time to give the Great Lighthouse its rating. So what I do is I rate each wonder on a 1 to 5 scale, with 5 being outstanding and 1 being absolutely terrible. And the overall rating just kind of gauges the general effectiveness of the wonder and its bonuses. I'm going to discuss some use cases for when you would want to build the wonder as well, and I'm going to give each wonder a difficulty and consistency rating that also follow the 1 to 5 scale. And the difficulty rating just kind of judges how difficult it is to construct the wonder and how competitive you have to be with the AI to construct it before they do, and that is assuming deity difficulty, and the consistency rating just kind of gauges how consistent the bonuses of the wonder are, and how versatile the bonuses are, and how often they apply. So without further ado, let's go ahead and rate the Great Lighthouse. So for the overall rating for the Great Lighthouse, I think it deserves a 3. It is a fairly average wonder. I wouldn't consider it to be all that great, but it's definitely not bad, and it has its uses, and those uses are as follows. So the big one that I think you would want to build the Great Lighthouse for is, as I mentioned earlier, that extra mobility for naval domination. If you're going for a domination victory, and if you're not playing on Pangaea map type, chances are you're going to have to cross an ocean of some sort, and you're going to be facing off some coastal cities. Having an extra 1 movement on all of your naval units is going to be very helpful, because it's going to make it a lot easier to position your naval military units, like your ships, so that way it's very easy to take coastal cities. And if you have to send your land units across an ocean, it's going to make it a lot faster just to get plus 1 additional movement on all of them, and it's going to make that a lot less of a slog. So for that reason, I think that the Great Lighthouse can be very helpful, because it just kind of speeds up the ease of which you can get your troops around across continents if you're playing on a map type that is not Pangaea. The other use case for the Great Lighthouse is in its cross-continent expansion power, just because, as I mentioned, all of your units that are embarked as well are going to gain that +1 additional movement, so this does make it easy to, send naval units around to scout out the edge of continents or to do anything of the sort. Also, you can use that extra additional movement to send settlers off to other continents and establish like very early cities on other continents whenever you discover them. So for that reason, I think that the Great Lighthouse can be useful, just because of how easy it is to move things around on the ocean once you construct it. As far as the difficulty rating for the Great Lighthouse is concerned, I think it deserves a 3. Much like with the Colossus, it is fairly average on its difficulty, just because not a ton of civs are going to build it, because not a lot of civs are going to have really well built up coastal cities that can produce the Great Lighthouse in a competitive amount of time. But that also means that it's not always going to be likely that you have a coastal city that is able to produce the Great Lighthouse in a competitive amount of time, so it kind of evens out, and if you really try to go for the Great Lighthouse, you're probably going to get it, but if you're not trying too hard, you're probably not going to get it, but you might still have a chance. So for that reason, I think its difficulty is fairly average and thus deserves the 3. As far as its consistency rating is concerned, I once again think that it deserves a 3. Its bonuses are useful in certain cases, but not all of them. Obviously, you're going to get the same exact bonuses every single time, no matter what, whenever you build the Great Lighthouse, so for that reason, I think it gains some extra points for that, and you're pretty much always going to be able to place it down, because it's very easy to satisfy the building requirements for it, so I think that gains it some points as well. But it really gets crushed on its versatility, because I think outside of domination games, there's not really much of a reason to build the Great Lighthouse, especially whenever the Colossus is something you could build instead. So if you're not going for domination victory, I would pretty much always pick the Colossus over the Great Lighthouse, but for that domination victory type, I think that the Colossus, I think that the Great Lighthouse is quite strong, but just because of that lack of versatility, I think it deserves a 3 on its consistency. So thank you everyone for watching. I have been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for more Civilization 6 content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.